Welcome back to Parenting by Human Design for Parents and Kids. I'm your host, Sasha, the Catalyst, and I'm so glad you're here. Today I have a special guest, Leticia. Fantastic. I have been following her on Facebook mostly for the last, I think it's been a little over 2 years. And she is one of my go-to resources about human design, all things human design, because she is one of the best students of Ra's out there. She studies very consistently, I guess is the word I'd choose. And she's always a wealth of information. So welcome to the show, Leticia. Thank you for being here. I'm just I love having conversations with you. So I'm glad that you've agreed to let us record one so that other parents and human design people, fans, can learn from some of the things that you and I talk about, because it's great. So how are you today? Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me, Sasha. I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, you're welcome. Go ahead.
I'm enjoying our conversation very much, and thank you for the recognition too. That's really nice.
Yes. Can you tell us, for the audience sake, can you tell us what your human design profile is, just so we can kind of get the base language out there for everyone?
Sure. I'm a 5'2" Splenic Projector.
Yes. So recognition is super important for you. And tell me, I guess what I'd like to hear about is tell me about the 5'2". That's not a very common profile line. Can you tell me what you've learned in your experiment with it? You've been experimenting with human design, or living your experiment, I guess would be the right way to say it, since 2018. Tell me what you've learned about being a 5'2" and about being a Splenic Projector, like some of the main 3 takeaways that you've been experimenting with that have been themes for you.
Oh, so many things.
I know, right? The big theme.
The big themes, I guess, projections are a big one, because I have my double projection field with the fifth line and the second line. So that's been a big one for me. Understanding that thing where I can sense people are not seeing me. They're very well intentioned, and it doesn't mean I'm not loved and appreciated, but there's always some kind of fog between me and them. On both sides, not just me. So it's just very confusing, and
like a shield, sort of like a. I think of Star Wars and those force shields, is it like a, so that, I don't know. How would you describe it? What does it feel like in your experience?
It's less solid than a shield. I usually describe it by some kind of fog. There's a fog, and my fifth line is and my second line, I guess. It's like billboards about me, like things that are advertised about me that may or may not be true.
Exactly.
and that's where it's confusing, because I have those people that I can see some things in me, because I have a million second line. I have 11.
Wow.
Yeah, 11. And so people see a lot of things that I can't see, and I'm not able to assess if they are here or not. So it's very, very confusing because of that. And it's less confusing when you follow your authority, I guess. I guess I know, it's the only way to make it not confusing and very, very painful and very stressful is to follow my authority. So I'm a bit lucky, because Splenic authority, it's going with the flow of all that. You have to listen to your gut and stuff like this, Mm-hmm. and so when I was recognized for being very intuitive, and was kind of late, because I was raised to think that decisions have to be moral in certain ways, so mental, basically, because if you have principles to decide, well, it's just mental decisions. And but I can still hear a very, very good friend of mine looking at me. It was my last year of university, and looking at me and say, Leticia, do you realize how intuitive you are and how much you can trust that? I'm suspecting she was a projector too. I never had the
That's a good hunch, probably.
I really think so. And that changed a lot, like, because from there it was my authority channel. It's half red, half black. So that means that it's the 2838. Mm-hmm. So you basically fight for your intuition and your integrity. That's very basically. But the intuitive part is the red one. So the one that I didn't identify by myself, I couldn't identify by myself.
Right.
So I always knew I was a fighter, and I always knew I was feisty and annoying.
One of my children has the 2838, so I'm laughing with.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm laughing with identification. I'm not laughing at you. I'm very familiar with that energy.
That's not an easy one. We are very, very stubborn, very, very stubborn, and very deaf. So that's always
yes, one. I do find that I have to repeat myself a lot with that one.
I definitely can imagine that.
It's okay though.
It's okay as long as you know the design of your kid. It's perfectly fine. I was kind of punished for it. Why are you so stubborn? Why can't you listen?
Why don't you learn your lesson from? Yeah. How many times you have to make that mistake before you're gonna figure it out? Right?
Yeah. Why can't you follow? What can't you follow orders? Just
What? There's no such thing. I know. I do ask him sometimes. I'm like, now when I tell all the kids that we're going to go to bed at a certain time, do you somehow think that I'm not talking to you? But he's a generator, so sometimes when I ask those yes/no questions, at least I can get his sacral to respond to me. But yeah, no. Otherwise, but if his body's not part of the conversation, you might as well be talking to the wall because he really can't hear you.
So. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's not personal. Like I think that I can totally understand why you got punished for that a lot. Before I started learning human design, I actually thought that it was a reflection of like how he felt about me. Mm-hmm. That he didn't respect me or that I wasn't being heard. And so of course I would get my feelings hurt and then I would escalate with some anger or punishment. And now after really learning this in human design, I'm like, well, this isn't personal at all. He has it's in his body. He kind of really doesn't have control over it, except that we can pick. I am trying to guide which battles are worth the fight, a little bit. So he's not, trying to take down every bully at the playground or whatever. So, but anyway, but back to your story. Sorry. But yes, I'm just laughing in identification. It is more of a difficult energy for him, I think, than for me now that I realize it's not personal. It's just part of who he is now to me. And I love him for it. So, and
If you're able to see that in him, to see that it's not personal, that's a great piece of awareness. Of course, it's going to feel personal. Basically,
right?
It's basically am I allowed to swear?
Yes, of course.
There's a fuck you energy to it.
Yeah.
No, fuck you. I won't do that.
You're not the boss of me.
Of course, yeah, exactly. You're not the boss of me. It's very individual, and my only 2 channels are very individual. So a lot of fuck you in me. And a lot of you can shout, you can be mad. I may say yes just for my tranquility, and they do whatever I want. So
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So as long as you know that, if I had been celebrated for that as a child, my life would have probably been much, much easier. And just instead of being punished for it, and instead of being seen as some kind of insubordination.
Yeah, sure. Like you were just a problem that needed to be dealt with. So that you could come into line with the agenda of the house. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. And then also coupling that with the projection field, that must have been difficult too, to not really feel seen by your parents sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell, are you comfortable speaking about that a little bit? The two things kind of juxtaposed to each other? Like an example, maybe?
It's just that I made them so mad. Mm-hmm. In a way, like... I have a brother who is a 5. He's a 5'1", and but it's not the same, like is in his collective, so it's much more
right.
malleable, like just
Malleable.
he's
Yeah.
going with the flow much
Yeah.
more easily than me.
Well, and he can connect to the bigger picture idea. Like it's not so much about how it's affecting him personally, but like,
Yeah,
I can see that maybe my needs aren't as important as the family's collective need or the community's need. I can see that.
exactly. And it's just, it was too painful for me. It was really just too painful for me to be that way. So I can see that he's like this, and my sister is very tribal, so she was always the one that was the mini parent, like, and I was the older sister, but I was not the responsible one, like it's just like, just leave me alone, I don't want that. you take it, and I was seen as that. It reminds me. The other day, I was discussing with a generator that I both love and hate, and it's very, very. We have a lot of fun with that because our composite has maybe like 10 or 11 electromagnetics connections.
Oh my goodness!
So very, very sparkly.
Yeah, that's a lot. So, my husband and his dad are like 7, and I thought that was a lot, but 10 is. I mean, that might be a record. So
it's huge, like it's like whoa, and I sometimes really love him, and I sometimes really hate him, and it's very reciprocal in that way. Like he's like this too, and we laugh about it. And the other day, he just told me that you don't have to contradict me all the time. I say, of course I know. It's just like it's not like I'm choosing to contradict you.
I love it.
It's just like not a choice. Like I'm not a contrarian. I'm not emotional, so I would be avoiding the conflict if I can. And sometimes I'm saying things, and my mind is like, "You can't say that. You can't say that. Stop it. You're going to be in trouble. They're going to be annoying afterwards." It's just like this. And I just can't. And my mom is definitely emotional, and I don't know if she's the only one or my dad is too. I really can't say for sure because I don't have the time for my dad.
Birth time. Mm-hmm.
And he's a manifester, and she's a generator, and I could sense them boiling when I was not agreeing, and they have that. They were very compliant children, both of them, they had that sense of duty and that sense of that's the family, that's what we have to do. And so having me as a child, like so individual and heretical too, because with my fifth line, I don't do the things the way a lot of people do them.
Right.
And I think it was very hard for them. And it was okay when I was a child because I was left to my own device a lot. So that was perfect for me.
Sure.
Like spending a lot of time by myself. So perfect for all my second lines. But it got really hard at the time of teenagehood. That's the word, right?
Mm-hmm. Adolescence. Yep. Teenagehood.
When we get individualized, and suddenly I was hearing a lot of where my sweet little Laetitia go, and I didn't have the word to say, well, she's not happy with the way you're treating her right now. Like suddenly I have all those duties and all those things I have to do and focus on, and I don't want to focus on that. They wanted me to focus on my studies because in France, you have an exam just before high school. Mm-hmm. So that's a big one. And so at the beginning of secondary school, I started to hear a lot that I needed to work a lot. But I didn't need to work a lot. I have a right mind. I don't need to study. All I need is to be present when the teacher is doing things. And when they are, and I was a lot, so that means that I was very bored at school, because it was kind of easy, and so all the homework stuff it was awful for me because and suddenly my mom was sitting me all Wednesday afternoons because I had a very, very, very severe French teacher, and we had so much homework to do, and I didn't need them. It was stuff like you needed to highlight some stuff, all the nouns in a one color,
sure, like
one color.
what I would call busy work to practice. That's definitely like geared towards what a generator possibly needs. Generators are definitely all about mastering something before they move on to another subject. And so I see sometimes some of the school assignments, even in America, where it's like, now you have to do 5 worksheets about that skill. Well, your projector child might have learned it the first time you talked about it, maybe even mastered it the second time you introduced it in class. And so now the homework feels like boring and difficult. It's not engaging the projector child, whereas the generators do actually need to go through mastering it with their body. So playing with that information, like writing it or whatever, I feel like. And I'm not saying that projectors should be let go and not have to do homework, but a better assignment for a projector might be like, in your own words, explain the concept back to me and tell me how you would teach it. Right. So then that's engaging a different part of the projector's guiding energy and saying, okay, now you want me to explain how to do that to someone else to show you that I mastered the topic. That would have been maybe a better assignment for you than highlighting all the nouns in a paragraph.
Yeah, for sure. Like my 4323 are my son Earth. My personality son Earth, and that would have been perfect. Like having to explain the system, because grammar is a system, math is a system.
They're all languages, basically, right?
Yeah. And my body with all those 8 second lines, some of the stuff can be really, really easy. So that was so awful for me to have to sit and do all that useless homework that I knew intuitively I didn't need.
Right.
And it was all about just showing my teacher that I could do it. So it's proving myself. So with my open ego doesn't work. And it's just, we were driving each other crazy because of that.
I bet. It reminds me of I fired my piano teacher when I was about the same age. I was in 7th grade. I was probably 12. And well, I couldn't have been in 7th grade yet. I wasn't. But anyway, the summer, it was like I fired my piano teacher because I really wanted to learn for Elise. And she had me playing Green Sleeves over and over and over again until the cows came home. And I was bored with it. And I felt like I had to prove myself because she wouldn't let me move on to the harder piece until I learned the easier piece. And so one weekend I learned for Elise by ear. And I came back and I played it for her, and she said my timing was terrible, which I knew that, but I had mastered the piece. And now I wanted her guidance to get better at it. And she wanted me to play Greensleeves. And I'm like, if you're not even going to take, I taught myself this incredible piece. You've got me. This is like 6 books away from the book I'm in. Right. And I'm like, let me just show you what I can do, because I've got this musical talent inside of me because I'm a line 2. And she didn't recognize it. So I fired her. I'm like, I never did go back to piano lessons. I played piano a lot in my life, but I just never finished taking lessons. I couldn't stand having to go, like you said, go through it's like you're taking all the fun out of this. I want to learn a piece I've been wanting to know how to play since I was like 5 years old. Let's go with I don't know. It's hard when we're talking about parenting children. First of all, because Ross said that this was really for the children, it's hard because sometimes I think practical parents listen to some of these kinds of conversations and go, well, but it's good character to learn how to be studious and to learn how to be a hard worker and to learn how to be, so we don't want to forsake the moral character development of doing the hard things by cooperating with the energy too much. Right. And so the more I'm in my experiment, the more I'm like, I think there's ways to teach integrity and moral standards without necessarily violating their energy. So anyway, you've studied Ra a lot more than I have. Can we just talk a little bit about why you think that this was so important to him, that people really started applying human design to the children? And let's just talk, if we don't mind segueing to that, since we've been talking about childhood so much.
It's everything to start with them, because we won't ever be correct the way a child can be correct if you feed them and if you let them live the way they're supposed to live, it's just, so that means that almost no one on earth is actually correct. It's actually who they are supposed to be. And